Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Kylee Cast. I'm Kylee Griswold, managing editor at The Federalist. Please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We have a brand new channel just for the Kylee Cast on Apple Podcast and Spotify. So if you are just subscribed to the Federalist Radio Hour or You're Wrong with Molly Hemingway and David Harsani, be sure to go over and subscribe to the Kylee Cast on Apple Pod or Spotify as well. And if you're just listening to the show, definitely go check out the full video version on my personal YouTube channel or the Federalist's channel on Rumble. And then, of course, like and subscribe there too. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at radio@thefederalist.com. I would love to hear from you. I am so excited today to be joined by Tony Kinnett. You know him as the national correspondent for the Daily Signal and host of the Tony Kinnett Cast. I know him as that theater and choir guy from college. Tony and I talk faith, marriage, politics, everything in between. You're not going to want to miss it. Please welcome Tony Kinnett. Tony Kinnett, it is so good to see your face.
It was a shock when I came into the Trump hotel lobby in 2020 CPAC, and I had no beard. My hair was very unkempt, and I strolled in and I see you and like 5, 6 dudes fawning over you like it's a Great Gatsby scene.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh, someone who also came from my little tiny middle of nowhere woods is like in this big scene of all of these coastal people, wannabe elite people. It was really cool. It's always good to see your face and stuff.
Always good to see your face. I will say we like to blast the left about revisionist history, and I'm going to need to call you a little bit on your revisionist history of that. I think part of it was true, but I don't know about the sea of men fawning. I think that's a little overstated.
So I'm not going to back down on this, and here's why. When Kylee and I were in college together at our tiny middle of nowhere university, we looked like kids, dorks kind of a thing. And we went to this Baptist college, so dressing in a way that fit you was
Flattering.
discouraged. Yes, flattering. It's kind of, yeah. And so to walk in and to see Kylee just as an adult, and once you get in that adult, when you really just hit your stride of how you're supposed to look in your mid-20s,
you turn into a real person and not just a shell of a child. Yes.
The word that I later used to describe this when telling this story is just walked in and she's just a bombshell. And all of these people, and seriously, all of them, all of these guys I could name names, I won't, out of respect, were absolutely fawning over her. And when I went over to say, hi, this dorky friend from your Baptist college you went to, I got looks of very sharp daggers from these beta men lusting.
That is hilarious. Well, that is not how I would have told the story, but thank you, Tony, for just starting us off in that way. Thank you.
My genuine
if it wasn't clear, I know Tony from college. We go way back. Like he said, very small Baptist school in the middle of nowhere. You pretty much knew everybody there. So Tony and I had no choice but to be friends, I guess, but it worked out.
True.
Yeah, Tony, so I know you from that era, obviously, but I don't really know much about your life before that. Can you just kind of fill me in on your background, your faith? Like, what brought you to the moment of going to a Christian college?
So, and I've never been asked that per se. So I grew up in this eastern central Indiana, rural area outside of a factory town.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents, kind of one of the defining moments in my life, my grandmother actually led me to the Lord in the back of her Toyota Camry while on the way to a daycare center that she was dropping me off at on a bright spring morning in 2000. I was 4.5 years old.
Okay.
And that's that moment. Other than that, the other defining moment probably of my childhood, my parents did in fact divorce when I was in early elementary school. And so it was just my dad raising me. My sister went to live with my mom.
Okay.
And then my dad's job, which is a factory job, left with the whole financial crisis. And so it was a very up close look at kind of how millennials were affected by that kind of recession era of politics and the failed trade policies of the George W. Bushian era and the Obama era of politics. And I also always loved politics as well. I went to a Christian high school. I had gone to public school up until that point. did sports stuff, did some theater stuff, did some music stuff, just did kind of a grab bag of
Hmm.
whatever. Was trying to go to West Point. I got Mike Pence was my congressman in the Indiana 6th. And before he ran for governor, I was his last congressional appointment to West Point, and ended up doing some stuff with West Point, did SLS, got through a lot of the training, a lot of good stuff there. But didn't feel that's really what I was made for.
Hmm.
Just being at the time, West Point was focused on engineering degrees and just really focused on that side of the ledger. And I felt like I wanted to do something more people oriented. And so ended up leaving there and went to this tiny Baptist college where my friends were going, honestly. And in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, at Maranatha, and honestly took an education degree kind of on a lark, and found I loved it, and I was a science ed guy, and that's kind of what led me there. A lot of it was more accidental. I wish I could say I had these driving moments and theories, but I am one of those who did kind of bump into things. So
Okay. Yeah, I'm misremembering. I thought it was history ed, but now that you say that, I remember that it was science ed. Interesting.
yeah, I was that dorky Bill Nye-ish because originally it was music education, and then I thought,
Okay.
well, I actually want a job, and also I don't know if you remember, there was this very severe, almost like Slavic Russian lady on campus named Jane Bruce,
Okay. I
and
don't remember.
she would smack my wrists with a ruler because I don't classical music. I can play. I'm a pianist, and I don't play classical stuff, and I'm not as good at it. I'm more of a chords and jazz and gospel and that kind of a thing,
Sure.
which she wasn't. And so I was like, well, I don't want to do 4 years of having my wrists smacked,
She was
spatted.
not into you. She was not into you and your kind.
No, I need to play real music. And it's like, please don't send me to the gulag. So yeah, I picked science education. I always kind of like science, and yeah, it kind of stuck.
Huh. Okay. So you major in science ed. You very publicly are no longer a teacher.
Yes.
Can you kind of walk me through what exactly happened with the Indiana education system, Tony?
So I had done a little bit of teaching in Wisconsin, had worked in Governor Walker's office, and liked politics. And there was this girl. It's a bad way to start any story. Who was a granddaughter of a representative in the state. And we were friends. She wrote for this little outlet. Actually, was the second article for it, called Lone Conservative, that was run by Cassie Dillon, now Cassie Akiva. And it got me writing. So I was like messing around with some political commentary and writing. When I was in college, there were no professors that were ever fawning over my ability to write, but got into it, enjoyed it. And I was also teaching in public schools, getting through student teaching into regular teaching. You've seen the movie Hoosiers,
I have
basketball
not
movie?
actually. No, I haven't seen
Well,
it.
wow, to be from the Midwest and not have seen
I know.
Hoosiers is a cardinal sin,
I'm a
given that that's
disgrace to
both
my
our state
region.
birds, no pun intended. No, it's so the school that is a shot at, called Knightstown. I taught their rural school. I got
Okay.
teacher of the year my first 2 years, and that was a problem because I wasn't special at all. I'm not trying to be modest either. I mean, there were ways that I cut corners and ways that there were tons of days that I wasn't my best. And I always thought the teacher of the year was this over obsessed, overexcited Walmart greeter of a person
Okay.
who was like, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
Miss Rachel personified,
Oh,
but
yeah.
maybe without the radical Islam.
Please
And
no.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, um, I was surprised. I thought, well, then something's really wrong in this education system. And I got to witness uphand the Karenizing of education, of like these teachers that wanted to be mommy and that wouldn't do any discipline, and administrators that wouldn't hold standards for discipline. And
Yeah.
as an education teacher, I had a sped license because Dr. Holly was obsessed that I get one. He was like, you have to have one. And I thought, why?
Okay.
I want to teach sped. He said, that's exactly why you need a sped license. You just don't put it on your resume. And he was very correct. And I had like these arguments with special ed because there were all these far left leaning, weird new age ideas in education that sucked, that weren't
Mhm.
based on any fact, but just, well, don't you love kids? You don't want to hurt them, do you?
Mhm.
And then they would suddenly stop paying attention when the kids would get hurt because of their policies or their plans.
Right.
They would just blame it on something else, usually
Right.
some right wing parent or whatever. I also learned to desperately hate teachers unions during that time because they did what's the proper Christian way to say this? Bleep all to protect me or any of my colleagues. They gave us like a bag of fudge one year, and I was like, wow, that's it. Screw this. And so
I'm
I
surprised that that was when it was cultivated in you and not when you were working for Governor Walker, who was, like, notoriously an anti-teacher union governor. Like, that was his main thing.
so while a lot of staff in Governor Walker's office were kind of, and this would come to plague me later, would kind of attend the dinners because we're Republicans. We have lots of dinners with people. I was driving around to godforsaken places like Appleton, Eau Claire, Dunbar to like meet with teachers because he eventually moved me from this policy and ledge intern to junior education advisor, which is about as useful as feet on a fish. I didn't really get into a lot of the teacher politic drama there. I did. I mean, I talked with unions, but I met too many local union reps who, honest to God, were nice
Sure.
people, and many of
Mhm.
them didn't hate Walker, and did want freedom and like choice to be the union or not. But when I was in Indiana and I saw how it affected my classroom, and I saw how it affected, like, I wasn't allowed to negotiate my own contract.
Mhm.
The union just decided, even if not everyone had to be in the union, they were just going to decide the rules. I was like, what? Why do you get your hands in my pocket whether I want it or not?
Right.
Ended up getting married and was writing in, politically at this time for a couple of outlets. My very first big time op-ed, as in like getting in a major publication, was actually the Federalist. I
Okay.
used it as a time to warn everyone about all of these, like someone telling you STEM education was cool with all of kids learning with robots and these toys. And I said, these are just shiny toys that are being sold. And like Chromebooks and distance learning is a lie. I got my
Mhm.
master's degree and then another master's degree, both huge wastes of money. And
Well, you were ahead of the curve on that one too, on the
oh,
distance learning.
it's worse because my thesis for one of my master's degrees is the coming crisis. Well, it's called replacing the educator, like the coming crisis that's going to mean we're going to have to rely on distance learning. And I didn't, and that was in 19 when I published it.
Mhm.
And I said, I don't know. I didn't actually think it was a pandemic. I thought it may be like a 1971 style blizzard that keeps everyone inside for 6 weeks or whatever. But anywho, then I ended up getting into politics, moved into administration after I got my master's degrees and taught in an inner city school. And Indianapolis Public Schools was just ridiculously woke, obviously, as the most inner city, kind of the biggest school district in the state at the time.
Mhm.
And when I got to do my job, which was managing 200 something teachers, which by the way, I was far too young to do, good heavens. Um, when I got to do my job, it was awesome. I loved it.
Mhm.
My teachers liked the work I did. But I was stuck in all of these racial equity meetings and arguing, like two white women arguing whether gay men or black men were more oppressed in this country. I saw Gloria Ladson Billings again, who was at University of Wisconsin Madison. I audited some of her classes while we were in college, and she came down to laugh about how we were teaching critical race theory. And they gave us this telemarketer script. If our parents or teachers asked us, "Hey, are you teaching critical race theory?" This is around 2021. Um, we were to tell them, "No, we are not using critical race theory. Actually, we are using," but then behind closed doors, we would laugh like
Mhm.
at our parents and teachers because we knew we were.
Right.
And one morning, I'd finally had enough, and this was more calculated. Uh, I had been kind of collecting evidence for about a year on the district because um, there was a guy that tried to get me fired for tweeting "Rest in peace, Rush Limbaugh" about a year prior.
'Kay.
And yeah, then I just finally one morning something snapped. I'd been running an education publication for about 6 months at this point, and I basically released a video that said, "Yeah, if we tell you we're not teaching critical race theory, we're lying to you.
Mm.
Keep looking." And then it took them 2 months to fire me. I went on Tucker that evening, which then a bunch of staff tried to claim was emotional harassment and abuse and caused them psychological trauma. Incredible. And then they took them 2 months to fire me because I was a good employee. And
'Kay.
so while my wife was in the labor room, um, dealing with preeclampsia with our first, born a month early, I was being fired officially, finally, from Indianapolis. And
Oh my word.
it was just go into politics and education writing and stuff full time. Sorry, I know that's a long
Wow.
answer. I've tried like 8 times to condense that down before. It's a hard one because there's a lot of stuff in there.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, I have so many follow-up questions, so many things I wanna ask you
I'm so
about.
sorry.
First of all is, just the way you described your classroom. I assume you read that piece in Compact Mag within the past couple weeks. I don't know, time has no meaning right now, from Helen Andrews about the great feminization. And did you read that article? It was, like, very chatted about, like, in DC circles, which neither of us is in, but, um, fantastic article. Joy Pullman at The Federalist wrote a follow-up piece quibbling with a few points of it, but overall, fantastic piece. And she basically talks about basically anything that you think of as wokeness is just the feminization of America, and just the way that you describe the administration and the culture at that school is exactly what she talks about, where you can be fired. She talks about how you can be fired for, using locker room talk kind of a thing, but you can't be fired for running a corporation like a Montessori kindergarten. And because we've just become like completely feminized, and the way that education has contributed to that as well. And so what you're describing seems to really fit into that problem.
It so I don't know of the article you're talking about. I'm not surprised. Excuse me. I'm not surprised that Joy had the takes that she had on it, because Joy's an excellent writer. Uh,
Mhm.
and not only because she's a Hoosier, Joy's just an excellent writer in general. But in this instance, yes, this is something that I did grow to learn. I never really put a finger on it while I was in education, because I also had bosses who were women who were very competent
Mhm.
administrators
Yep.
and weren't just cutesy female, but also catfight. Like any cutesy kind of feminine-esque leadership is also that kind of catty, vindictive,
Mhm.
passive aggressive kind of thing where they're always threatened.
Mhm.
And the moment for me that I think that I recognize that was an issue in education, believe it or not, was my first year teaching, when I heard the real story about how my fourth grade teacher, who I ended up at a totally different school, ended up teaching alongside in an intermediate school, fourth grade to eighth grade.
Mhm.
Uh, I found out the real reason he was canned from the school that I grew up in, because a couple of years after I was out of that school, he got canned. And the argument was always, well, he had sexually harassed a student teacher, and that kind of brokered, oh, he did. And it turned out that the actual story behind it, and I'd seen the documents, and I actually went and FOIA'd some things from that old
Okay.
school. He had made a flirtatious line at a student teacher that she took the wrong way. Essentially, there's really no
Mhm.
evidence whether or not it was that was really what occurred. She had previously been making like sexually predatory remarks about the male teachers at the school, and so the double standard
Yep.
was like wild. And he was and
Yes.
by the way, like looking back now, I'm it's wild that that wasn't taken to court, because there's no way that I think in a court of law you could have actually made the case that there was any kind of sexual harassment. But this type of, men are bad in education because men are naturally predatory, and women are wonderful and understanding, and they're mommy and affirmation and love and wonder. It has ruined education. It has.
Mhm.
The minute
Mhm.
that we have abdicated male leadership in education, like the master model, um, of the trades,
Mhm.
it's completely fallen out from under it. It's why most young men the real reason most young men find such joy and fulfillment in working in a trades position is because they're under the tutelage of a grizzled old man who just doesn't care
Right.
about silly stuff
Right.
and actually gets things done and teaches real life skills.
Right.
Men and women do in fact need that. Strong men and women are necessary. This muling, well, you can't say anything because that's sexist and mean. No. I mean, I do
Yep.
want to hear my boss when I was fired from IPS, her first name is literally Barbie. I'm not joking.
Oh my word, it's too fitting. It's too fitting.
Or
Um,
Bobby, maybe. It was Bobby, but Barbie. It was like it was a dead match. Bobby, yes, it was like,
yeah. Yeah, don't even get me started on these Me
oh,
Too things either, because I've been really on an audiobook kick lately, and I'm just wrapping up listening to Molly Hemingway and Carrie Severino's book Justice on Trial about the
mhm.
Kavanaugh rape hoax and that whole situation. And so I'm real hot and bothered right now about the Me Too era, even though it's a little bit past. But
Allie Beth Stuckey's
anywho.
toxic empathy is
Oh,
also
yes.
really solid on this matter, and that's I think partly how Allie and I actually became friends in this movement. Is my because I'm you'd say, well, whether are you light on sexual assault? It's no, I believe that those who are convicted of any crime regarding like sexual nature, like actual sexual assault or rape, should be hanged in the public square.
Mhm. Right.
A euphemism, I mean, erect a gallows, hang him in the public square. A firing squad is a type of bravery and mercy. No, I mean what I mean. So I just don't believe in feminizing leadership at the same time.
Right. Right.
That's silly. And it's also insulting to women because it makes the ideal woman to be this career lusting, passive aggressive lady at the beginning of a Hallmark movie.
Mhm.
You know, like the CEO from New York who's balancing a lot of things. Isn't she wonderful? And like the best female bosses that I've had have not been like that at all.
Correct. Correct. Yep, 100%.
Sorry, I know we're bouncing around in and of this question, but yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
No, I love that. I actually wrote a piece a while back about how I very much fit into the Hallmark stereotype of somebody who aspired to be some level of that cringe type of boss babe, which is like the dumbest and cringiest thing I could ever say or admit, and then kind of fell backwards into small town Midwest, met my husband and decided actually that sounds awful and I would rather live a nice trad life here.
I have been fine. So there was a study that I read recently. I don't have it in front of me that has shaken my perspective on a ton. I found it about 6 months ago.
Okay.
The longer, on average, the longer a lady waits to have her first child,
Mhm.
the less likely she is to go back to work once she has that child. So a woman who has a child at between like 18, 19 to 22,
Mhm.
80% likely to go to work to put the kid in daycare. Someone who has what would be considered a geriatric pregnancy, which is
Mhm.
a term considering like 30 is not old,
Right.
but still, like someone who has their first baby between ages 28 and 35 are 80% likely not to go back to work. And
Interesting.
some
Does
people, maybe
this
it's financial stability, maybe it's but really it's a question of fulfillment. And once you get
Mhm.
out there and sample the corporate growing corporate ladder, whatever that has been advertised to young women, you're like, wow, this sucks
Yep.
kind of thing. It's what I'm sorry. That's it's really shaped a lot of that study was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it's it's kind of it's a red pill moment, I think.
No, please send that to me because it's really not surprising, but I wasn't sure how much the stability component played in, where it's like,
And
if you
that's why
have
I
a
haven't
baby and
really
you're poorer
talked
when you're,
about it.
19.
Yeah, I don't. I think it's too. There are too many factors, and this is the part of education that always makes me insufferable talking about data points. That there are too many factors. You know, I hate the word nuance. This is one of those that there really could be some genuine nuance to,
Mhm.
though.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But I will say anecdotally, the more women I talk to who get to that 30-ish mark, who were previously on the whoops, I forgot to turn off my reactions, so now everyone can
I'm
see my
always
thumbs
worried
up on my
that's me,
camera.
even though I'm on a PC. So just ignore my response to that. No, please continue.
I actually did before and now they must be back on, so I'm turning that off. Okay. Anywho, the more women I talk to who get to that 30-ish mark, who used to be very, very focused on career. It's wild how much there's just a biological and mental and even spiritual shift that happens. So that study you're referencing is really not that surprising to me. Even if there is a component that's a little bit of stability, I'm sure there's a lot of it that is a fulfillment. So I wish there were a better way to measure that. But yeah, very interesting. You'll have to send it
And
to me.
that's I will say that's one of the reasons that I bring up the study anyway. It's like, well, if you don't think that the study is full and there's other factors, well, then why bring it up? Because every anecdote confirms it.
Yeah,
Every
right.
single anecdote that I've heard regarding this study confirms it.
Yes. Because we also know a lot about, how little financial incentives actually play into when people do or do not have kids.
Also, humans have
So,
a
it goes
common
the
sense
opposite way
understanding
too.
of family. Humans innately are given. I mean, we, as Christians, I might say it's like the law of God written on individuals' hearts. You know, that's
Mhm,
discussed in Psalms. That everyone really kind of innately understands the purpose of family and structure, and
mhm.
when individuals are likely happiest. But this weird, I don't know, like higher civilization washing that we've done where we say, well, actually, there can be people who are very happy is a really weird mainstay that we've now brought into every conversation. I mean,
Mhm.
you've seen this with like the LGBTQ issue. Is it's like, well, there can be people who are better parents than straight parents can be.
Yep,
Slip my
yep,
wrists.
yep. Well, and the same thing happens my husband and I talk about this a lot, which maybe this is gonna get me into trouble. This is such a tangent, it's not even close to what I was gonna talk to you about, but here we are. This is what
Let me tell you
happens.
the conversation for the record. Good
What'd you
rabbit
say?
trails more fun. Good rabbit trails are more fun than like an established hiking trail that everyone's
Way
gone.
more fun. Way more fun. No, but I've seen this a lot in my own personal life, of, like, how much it affects men psychologically, and spiritually when they are not the providers in their home. I've seen a lot of men turn into Mr. Mom and turn into shells of people with young children. And this isn't, people will say, oh, you don't think men should help with the kids? Blah, blah, blah. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying there is a nurturing and child rearing role that is so biologically hardwired into women that's just different with men, and men are biologically hardwired to be the providers.
Well, I mean, it's
And when
biological
that gets
too.
turned on its head, it is bad for men, like real bad.
Oh, it is. I mean, of course it is, but there's some innate biological factors that people don't ever pay attention to. And so this is, by the way, you want to know why I think that the science education thing ended up really helping? It allows me to be a know-it-all at times in ways that like my political opponents can't possibly touch. I've had the privilege of watching so many Democrat strategists I've been put on the other side of in TV hits because now I'm the national correspondent and that's like my day job, so to speak. I'll whip out some stupid scientific fact that's obscure but true. They don't know how to address it. Here's one of them. Women, when children get hurt, naturally secrete a pheromone that
Mhm.
draws their children to them and comforts them. Men do not. Men, physically, biologically, it is impossible for men to comfort their children as well as women.
Hmm.
And by the way, just while we're sitting here, talking about these things, even adoptive mothers will still secrete such a pheromone after kind of like a recognized training. But this is one of the reasons why surrogacy is kind of an issue biologically, is that it is much more difficult to establish that kind of pheromonal link. One of the reasons we talk about like, rates of estrogen, how hormones change during pregnancy preps women to do this.
Mhm.
There's a heavy secretion of that, like as you get to the ninth month of pregnancy. Anyway, that's also why women are also considered like these supporters in the home to support
Mhm.
the provider. That kind of comfort also comes out for husband too.
Mm.
Distinctly different pheromonal marker, but that's the like our hormone system. That
Yeah.
the and we've already seen that broader society with how they're just chucking hormones at people has no idea what the heck they're doing with those
Oh my
anyway.
word. Seriously. And it's not just trans, it's also just like making women more like men with the pill. This goes so deep. It's not just maybe the most obvious things people think of. Um
If you know how people say that the way the body is organized with like the nervous system is so incredible, like how all of these nerve endings, like it speaks to the truth that there's a God because they'll think
mhm.
like how complex the eye is. For me, just as a science teacher and as an anatomy and physiology teacher, also, um, the system of the body that most echoes the clear command that it is not just God, but a Christian God is the endocrine system.
Mhm.
The endocrine system is so coded to basic human morality,
Yes.
it's not even funny. I mean,
Yeah.
how it's not even something that you can Pavlov away and change realistically. I mean, it comes through like Jack Nicholson with the axe. It's like, this is how it's going to be, man. Here,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So, you leave education.
yeah, come up with a
You
follow up question for that, Kylee.
you get into politics. All right. You said that you were always kind of interested in politics as a
Yeah.
kid or whatever because of your dad's work and whatnot. But was it always something that you actually gravitated toward? Like, was there a tipping point moment or a particular political issue that kind of catalyzed you into being interested in writing or getting in the movement? Or was it really just the education stuff? Like, what actually pulled you in?
I mean, I've been interested in politics since I watched as a 4-year-old George Bush, kick the crap out of the election in '04. Politics is always, I think, initially innately fascinated me because of the drama. The drama is
Mhm.
interesting. I enjoy watching politics in a way that a
For
lot of
anyone who
people
knows
enjoy.
Tony, that's not surprising.
That's not no. I enjoy watching politics the way that a lot of people enjoy watching The Office. I do. It is the tea. It's fun. There's also a pattern psychology element that is deeply fascinating to me. You find a lot of my writing and explanations have to do with how people think and feel,
Mhm.
and connecting the common sense that everyone has to the broader philosophies and political ethos that I've added through reading and writing, whether they be Thomas Sowell or whether it be Robert Heinlein, who wrote the book Starship Troopers. So those particular aspects of how I like what was the driving moment that made me dive into politics was in 2015, and it was with our friend Ethan Hoffman.
Hmm.
So I was in a dorm room, and I was working with like I think one of our guys was trying to convince me to work with Governor Walker. I'd said yes, but there was a clinical aspect of it. I was just doing it because I was told I'd be good at it. I was taking kind of a break that every kid who may have been involved in politics or every young man goes to college and they'll either take a break from politics or they'll get into a really stupid ideology.
Mhm.
So mine was I kind of went more both sides are bad libertarian for
Okay.
like just a year or two because I,
The
you know,
worst path you could possibly take.
everyone's really stupid, and that saying everyone is stupid makes me smart. And there was this video, and I can't remember the guy, but there was this video of this guy that was shared on Twitter and everywhere at the time where America's not a great country today, but we sure used to be. We used to disagree with each other and we used to talk. And if I said the name of the actor, you would know it, but it was paraded around as this both sides are bad. America used to be a good place. And our friend Ethan walked into the dorm room where I was watching that and he said, "That video is retarded." He said, "That video is awful." And I was like, "Oh, no, it's not." And he said, no, it's kind of the worst." And he pulls out a Steven Crowder clip
Okay.
and plays his breakdown of that. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're right. How could I have like ignored the history of that?" And that flipped a switch in my mind. And what suddenly became a fascination with me were people gaslighting and just changing the history of real things that happened.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's become I now even today, like our show over at the Daily Signal is a huge portion of what we do is accountability. And I keep receipts better than CVS does because I can't stand people who think they're just going to get away with totally rewriting history
Mhm.
right after something
Yeah.
occurred. Now, the nation became obsessed with it through COVID. And that's one of the things that catapulted me to being not just maybe another voice out there, is because I was already obsessed with it. People then said, "Oh, okay, you're doing it good. Here you go," and then threw me forward, I would say.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Yeah. Um, yeah, and it's especially needful because the left-wing corporate media industrial complex exists to do the opposite. Like, they exist to rewrite the history. And of course, that sets the narrative, and so it's super important to have people who with the receipts, um, which is one thing that I'm loving from this book that I'm reading now, The Justice on Trial, of just the receipts that
Mm,
Molly and
mhm.
Carrie produce, where Democrats just completely ignored witness statements and evidence, and I mean everything, and just totally spun a narrative that was so contrary to the truth. But they do that with everything. I mean, this is every single news cycle you can possibly think of, and so, um, yeah, I mean that's the importance of conservative media and people who are willing to keep the receipts and say what's true.
I would say this is the other half of why my education training really became useful, because they would take what you just talked about and what I talked as the receipts as the
Hmm.
curriculum, like the physical media and the evidences of objective actions which occurred. But in education, when you're teaching, it's not just what you teach, there is also how you teach it. It's called
Hmm.
pedagogy. And if you're really stupid, you pronounce it pedagogy or pedagogy. Sorry, that's just a little fun quirk that no one asked for. Um, the pedagogy of media bothers the living hell out of me. The way to transform hormonal experimentation on children into
Hmm.
gender affirming care.
Yep.
They don't say it's not pro life and pro choice, it's pro choice and anti abortion,
Hmm.
right? Those
Right.
kinds of languages. For example, I know that obviously when you record a show like this, talking about news events is not always the wisest. The Dearborn terrorist attack, which was stopped by the FBI, you'll
Hmm.
notice that many of the media outlets, like USA Today, the Associated Press, initially they didn't include the word Dearborn, the name of the town, in the title. They just said Michigan. Why say Michigan?
Right.
Because in people's minds, what are the last couple of attacks that occurred in Michigan? You can think of the guy who assaulted the Mormon church, and then also you think of the plot to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer, which is
Hmm.
a Democrat, automatically think, oh, conservatives did this. So
Right.
by using the word Michigan instead of Dearborn, everyone knows in America that follows politics at all, Dearborn Muslims.
Hmm.
I
Yep.
mean, it's
Yep.
that kind of insidious pedagogy that also infuriates me, and it's why right wing media is important. When I was in Israel, I called the Israel government about this. Over, I actually argued with the Speaker of the House and also two of their lead anchors. You know, like their version of like Brett Baer, for
Hmm.
instance, that like everyone would recognize. They're Walter Cronkite kind of person. I said, okay, when you guys call a press conference, so you guys will get on stage and you will whine that the majority of the world lies about what you're doing, and the major media outlets per se,
Hmm.
BBC, Sky News, whatever. But then when you call a press conference, who do you invite to the press conference? Are you inviting the Daily Signal? Are you inviting the
Hmm.
Federalist? Are you
Right.
inviting GB News? Who are you inviting? Oh, you're inviting the same people.
Right. Right. I know.
You got to
It's
invest in
been
this year to grow it if you want it to change.
the new media seat in the White House press briefing room has been truly a huge change. And it's so sad that a single seat given to alternative media is such a win. But it is. It truly is. So we have this administration to thank for that.
And also, I would say that the work from some of our colleagues on two different sides of the right, so to speak, would be Mary Margaret Olahan at the Daily Wire,
Hmm.
formerly the Daily
Hmm.
Signal, good friend, and then also the I cannot remember her name, and I'm going to have to learn it here pretty soon. The young blonde reporter for Mike Lindell TV. Um, her.
Don't know the name, but
She's
okay.
the
Yep.
By the way, you would those who are watching this would know if they follow politics. She's the lady that's gotten all of the really good clips lately. That's
Hmm.
gotten Maxine Waters to admit that they shut the government down over illegal immigrants. That got Hakeem Jeffries to lose his mind. That got Nancy Pelosi to yell about the National Guard. All of
Hmm.
those her. That kind of the right wing just deciding now that our media is just as good and just as important.
Yep.
Taking the free press as seriously as we take CBS is what got Barry Weiss that position
Hmm.
by just saying, okay, you know what? Actually, the Daily Wire is just as serious as CNN. You
Hmm.
know, Federalist is just as serious as MSNBC. Taking that side of approach, I mean, it's a fake it till you make it on a national scale in a way, but
Yep.
it's not faking it. You know what I mean, though? They're just
Yep.
the
Yep.
confidence of assuming it. Yeah,
Yep. But it's not even just the confidence. It's also it has to start with not looking for pats on the back or for good contracts and gigs. Like you can't be David French comes to mind, but there are many, many more David Frenches in the world. You cannot
unfortunately.
be aspiring to be a columnist for WAPO or the New York Times in
No,
order to
no.
make your ascent in conservative politics, because if you are, you will not be a conservative commentator for very long. It's not just about the confidence, and but it also can't be about climbing the ladder. It's like you just have to go in and not care who likes you. If you are getting glossy coverage in the Wall Street Journal or anywhere else, you're probably not doing it right.
So I talked about this when I was getting started. So when I was still at Lawrence North, which is where I taught between Knightstown and IPS, um, the COVID thing was just getting started. And I had these master's degrees in that thesis that I talked about earlier. And WFYI, the PBS NPR-ish station here in
Mhm.
Indiana, had invited me on to talk because I was this young and up and coming education guy who had called something in advance. It would become a trend, but they didn't know it yet. They invited me on, and then my school system flipped out and said, no, he can't go on and talk because my school knew that I was writing right wing commentary articles
Mhm.
at the time. But since then, WFYI and other like stations of that nature have internal policies where they say, do not mention Tony Kinnett, do not talk about him because that elevates the work. And so I just focused on, okay, we're just going to write the best stuff at the time over at Chalkboard Review, which we'd
Mhm.
founded for this reason. We're going to focus on the good content and not focus on, oh, I'm going to keep on going until I'm hired by X or whatever. I'm going to keep on going until I'm at the New York Post or at the New York Times or what have you. And there is a danger, not just the David French, the that wing over on social media, the people who desperately want to be the breaking news influencer.
Mhm.
So this is actually my quibble with Benny Johnson. I don't mind saying publicly that Benny often is so obsessed with being out in front and being the guy that people cite. And by the way, I've cited him a lot. And as someone who has kind of a long-standing rivalry with him, like stealing my memes and not crediting me, like 10 years of that, that's always been kind of a joke that to cite Benny, I'm really admitting he did some great reporting here. And he has, back saying whether Laura Trump was going to run for the Senate or something. That's an example. But at times he'll get so excited to be the guy that people give praise to, he won't fact check his stuff. He'll see a rumor and he'll just go tweet it. And then it's embarrassing because now that
Mm.
has to be taken down. So there's the aspiration to be the wrong thing. And there's also the aspiration to be the big influencer that everyone thinks is really impressive.
Right. Right.
Both of those are damaging.
Right. Right. It turns into this weird third way sort of, it's whether they're doing it spiritually or politically. It's kind of like what you described as your brand of politics in college, where you just kind of you brand yourself as this like moderate who's kind of above it all, and like that's just not a good way to actually tell the truth.
Correct. Yeah, and that's my big issue with David French. Is it's like he just came out. So, David French praising the Hamasniks, and the Zoran Mamdanis and like the Antifa crew, and then
Yep.
turning around and saying, you know what, Christians need to shape up because I'm a Christian and I'm a
Yep.
conservative. It's like, no, you're not. You
Tony,
absolute clown nose. Get out of
to
here.
save conservatism from itself, we have to elect Kamala Harris. No, there was
Okay.
an interview with David French, I think it was earlier this year, that I talked about on a previous podcast, and he gets asked about his, uh, job offer to join the New York Times as a columnist, and he talks about how, like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting it at all, but it was such an honor. I was just so thrilled to be called." I'm like, "No self-respecting conservative would be honored or flattered by a job offer at the New York Times. That would be a sign that it's time for you to get the heck out of conservative journalism because you don't belong there." Like,
That's such a cultured and measured response. Because when you described his response to me, the first thing that came out is, wow, that's just really gay. Like imagine going, oh, the New York Times is oh boy.
I
Like,
know.
dude, testosterone, get some. They make it in pills now. I mean, come on, man. Eh,
Yeah, and he loves when people take those pills. It's a blessing of liberty.
Yeah, I'm
So,
going to say, just go to the doctor's office. You tell him you want to become a man, and I don't know, just go for it, bud. Yikes.
yeah. Um, Tony, how so of course we know your horrible political takes from your college era, you
That's right.
self-righteous libertarian you.
That's right. That
But
I dumped immediately after that Steven Crowder video. I immediately dumped it and never looked back once.
God bless Ethan Hoffman for radically changing the trajectory of your life.
I don't even think that he knows. I don't even think that he knows, because after that, I actually got into all of the podcaster sphere, like the Ben Shapiro show and
Mhm.
other stuff. And I mean, I was still for manufacturing firearms questionably legally and have, but that's, I still, yeah, I've become way more socially conservative and like, yeah, there are some decisions that, you don't get to abuse your children. Sorry, that's not libertarian. That's not a free speech issue. You're just
Mhm.
that person. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I was just gonna ask, like, since you've made your way into the political fray, and especially since the Trump era of politics, like, what the main ways your political philosophy has shifted.
Oh, this is a good one. This is a great question, because my answer is very, very unique, and I've talked about it before, so it won't be too verbose. There is a book that I've already referenced in this chat called Starship Troopers by Robert Heinlein. It is
Okay.
not the 1990s satire version that has some great acting and also some interesting topless scenes. That's not why you should just like making it clear what it's not. The 1959 book by Robert Heinlein is the only piece of fiction that the US Army recommends to its officers. It is a
Okay.
novel. It is a political philosophy novel masquerading as a sci-fi novel. Like the Harry Potter
Okay.
series, Harry Potter books are not actually books about magic and wizardy things. They're mystery books masquerading as a fantasy.
Mhm.
And the political philosophy of Robert Heinlein all goes and boils down to what it means to be a citizen. Who should get to vote and why?
'Kay.
And this is a thing that humanity has really wrestled with. And the unlimited democracy of everyone gets all of the privileges but none of the consequences and the responsibility, at the time, he said in 59, would go on to tear down the West. And he said, so the answer to this is that everyone needs in their society, everyone has to demonstrate their willingness to sacrifice themselves for the whole of the nation by demonstrating federal service. And that doesn't mean serving in the military as they portrayed in the 90s movie, but you have to demonstrate, even giving your life if necessary, through a dangerous or a difficult job, that you are willing to give your life to the whole. That's how you win the franchise to vote. And it is your constitutional right to serve. So whether or not, and they make a point of this in the book because they say, um, the character Johnny Rico, the main guy, he's applying to serve because he sees a pretty girl and he wants to impress her in the uniform. And he's really getting nervous because there's all of these tests he wasn't expecting. And he asked the doctor, um, am I doing well? Do you think I'm going to fail? And he says, oh, we're not allowed to fail people. He said, if you came into this office and you were blind and deaf and crippled, he said, we would still accept you. We would just find something difficult and arduous for you to do, maybe counting the hair on a caterpillar by touch. And the reason is access to performing said service,
Mhm.
unlimited, but you have to demonstrate it. Right now, we have a lot of people who have conscript syndrome. We have people who resent America because they're told to vote. You need to vote. You
Mhm.
need to care. And it's because everyone's a citizen. Why does the idiot who doesn't want anything to do with civic virtue have as much political power as I do?
Mm-hmm.
Who cares and invests the time? And it's like, oh, well, you want a polling tax? No, 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 no. Everyone should have equal access to do so. It's why I don't
Mm-hmm.
believe that a conscript military is a terrible thing. Because if you're in a foxhole next to someone and he was drafted there and doesn't want to be there, how likely is it he actually has his back? If you have to get up and run
Right.
and you need him to give you covering fire, he's more likely to sit in the foxhole, let you die, and save his own skin.
Right.
That's what American
Right.
politics has become a festering swamp of. In the Trump era, in the last couple of years, I have read that book 8 times.
Wow. What is it
And
called again? Say the name of it.
Starship Troopers by Robert
Starship Troopers.
in
Okay.
1959. And it's a very good novel. And he does, it's also helped by the fact that a lot of sci-fi novels that are older suck because they don't understand how to predict things. He kind of accurately predicts the way that tech realistically develops, but that's not hinging on the story. And the author actually makes a point to say that. It's a political philosophy book that wrestles the entire time, essentially, is him having flashbacks to his high school history and moral philosophy course and wrestling with, like, why does everything boil down to, like, why is everything in the government boiling down to a gun?
Mm-hmm.
Ben Shapiro articulated this before, so have every other political philosophy. At some point, every law is backed up by the government having to put you down to enforce it if necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Even a parking ticket, it's enforced by the gun.
Mm-hmm.
So if all of government action is naked, brutal, violent force in opposition to the female, the feminine, violence never solves anything. Well, then how do we responsibly use the force?
Right.
And I'm not talking George Lucas. Like, how do we
Right.
actually responsibly use that governmental, naked, brutal
Right.
force?
Right.
And it's sorry, that's just how my political philosophy's changed. That's made me more, as you can tell, like, actually conservative, as opposed to, if we just let everyone go, then social contract, everyone will act wonderfully. No, Lord of the Flies made it clear that that's BS.
Right. Right. Well, since you brought up George Lucas, I will just let the listeners in on a little bit of lore. I don't know if you remember this, Tony, but well, I know you remember part of this. Back in the day, in the college days, Tony and I were in the same traveling choir. And so we would go on tour in the spring and in the fall or whenever it was. And we 50 of us or whatever would be stuck on a tour bus and we would go around to wherever we were going for a week and sing in all these churches and schools and whatnot. And on the seat on the bus, you would be assigned seats for like each leg of the trip. And the one day I was assigned to sit next to Tony. And
Horrible
I
decision.
am not a sci-fi girl at all. Like, actually largely hate the genre unless there's like, a standout thing. Very rare that I like a sci-fi thing. And Tony was like, "You've never seen Star Wars? We need to watch Star Wars." And he turned on episode 3 or episode 1 or whatever the heck the first one is. That's not really the first one. It's actually
4,
kind of
New Hope.
okay, 4. Okay. Whatever. And I was borrowing his Doctor Who blanket and watching Star
No,
Wars.
that
And
wasn't
it was
my Doctor Who blanket. No.
Whose Doctor Who blanket? I was
That was someone
borrowing a
else's.
Doctor Who blanket and I was
Unnecessary
watching
question.
Star
Yeah.
Wars. And
I
it
had
was
a high
the
school.
worst.
Oh, yeah.
It was the worst couple of hours of
She
my life.
hated that.
And
Yeah,
I've never
that was
watched.
not mine. That was not my Doctor. I don't care for Doctor Who. That's because of a high school ex that was obsessed with it. And I was like, "Ugh." But Star Wars, yeah. Sorry for making you watch A New Hope. You're welcome.
It was horrible. It was horrible. And I have never watched another episode of Star Wars or whatever you want to call them again. And so anyway, so all of that to say, I'm very gun shy about Tony's sci-fi recommendations, but this book actually sounds good and I'll have to add it to my list.
It is. It's good. And again, I'm not saying that it's perfect or finished work or that I endorse absolutely everything,
Mm-hmm.
but the fundamental question of how we save ourselves from an infantile view of justice, like, because he wrestles with the idea of cruel and unusual punishment, which is
Mm-hmm.
essentially to, why is the biggest punishment you can get for a crime in most states a taxpayer funded timeout with more reading, exercise, and entertainment than many people can work to afford and achieve? Why?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why
Mm-hmm.
is that? And it's
Yeah.
and also, sorry, along the ideas of also, as awful as this is going to sound to people, why is it that there was such a moral abhorrence towards like the idea of like Guantanamo after 9/11? It's like, oh, they were waterboarding. And
Mm-hmm.
don't you think that's really cruel and unusual? No.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an aspect of a brutal realism that I think that can become nihilistic and despondent, and just pretending that we're not going to play with those toys, and so no one else is ever going to play with those toys, is
Mm-hmm.
a dangerous thing. And the right's realizing this right now. like, oh, we don't want Trump to prosecute his political enemy. We just, actually, the person who got me off of that, this is the other political change that I've dealt with, and it deals with podcasting, but also politics. Remember Julian Smith
Mm-hmm.
on YouTube, famous YouTuber that a lot of millennials enjoyed? I had a meeting with him about a year ago,
Okay.
and I was asking him for some advice because the show was starting to really grow, and maybe it was earlier this year. Either way, show was really starting to pick up steam. But I had some questions and concerns, and something I'd always hated was, and Benny, if you or your staff hear this, this is not a personal slight, but like the Benny Johnson-esque thumbnail style. You have like the red
Okay.
circle and the arrows and the lines, and I had an issue with that because we were talking about how you do things on the back end, the pedagogy of how you produce a show. And I said, I'm not trying to lure my audience into something. I don't want to bait them in like a cheap commercial. I'm not trying to do that. And he said, I understand that. And you shouldn't lie to your audience. He said, you need to play by the rules of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. What is that? He said, Tony, he said, because I started to ask and he cut me off and was like, shut up. Listen, when you play Monopoly, are there rules that you do not like? I say, yeah, I mean, there's some BS in Monopoly. Everyone knows this. He says, but when you are playing Monopoly, are there any rules that you ignore because you don't like them? No, you play by the rules. Why? Because you
Right.
want to win. And right now, there are rules on the table. There are certain thresholds that have been crossed, certain Rubicons that have been forded, certain norms that have been shattered. And so either you play to win the game, like
Mm-hmm.
redistricting is how I feel. There are a lot of conservatives in Indiana. We can't redistrict. Oh, no. I'm like, I'm sorry. Why does the racist piece of human trash, Andre Carson, deserve a seat? Why? Because you endorse the idea of drawing a little circle around Indianapolis because that's where you think the black people live. And so they get
Mm-hmm.
to elect. Like, that's disgusting. Why
Mm-hmm.
are we playing by that antiquated, deeply racist and divisionist rule? No.
Right. Right.
That's also changed.
But Tony, what if a future Democrat president were to weaponize the full power of the federal government to go against his political opponents? Whatever would we do?
I enjoy that. I enjoy the comment from conservatives that will point out things that Biden did. But my favorite take on this is to play the interviews from right before the election, where Kamala Harris promised to pack the Supreme Court, to
Yep.
unilaterally add states to the union.
Yep.
This is where Biden tried to just whoosh, slap in a constitutional amendment by tweet, ignoring the Supreme Court, obviously. But the things that Kamala Harris promised to do, things that Gavin Newsom has promised to do.
Yep.
And the argument that I get from moderates these days is, well, you don't know if they're really going to do that. And if I ever hear a moderate conservative try to tell me that in person, I am actually going to slap them. I'm
Right.
going to reach back like a butler in an old movie and go, "You cur!" And I'm gonna slap him because that is the most brain dead. They've already doing it. They
Yep.
are at the level of never giving power up again and
Yep.
committing maximum violence when they do it.
Yeah. Yep.
That's
And
not the finger on my hand that I want to be holding up during this conversation, by the way. To
they
that.
actually do honor their campaign promises. Like, look at Letitia James, perfect example. And like replicate that across all elected
By the
Democrats.
way,
Like,
I
this
love
is
the
the theme.
argument that Zoran Mamdani is, oh, you don't know that he would do any of that. He doesn't have the power to do so. Oh, yes. Notable respecter of the law,
Yes.
Zoran Mamdani.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm convinced.
Yeah. Maybe not the physical power. We've all seen the man try to do a one bench press, but the political power, they will seize the crap out of that. Yep.
Yeah, of course they'll fight dirty.
Yep.
When Nick Solheim over at Boston University said, you know what, you might have to be willing to die. You have to be willing to sacrifice your life. Again, there's that idea of the responsibility of
Mhm.
the citizen
Right.
in order to maintain the American ways of life. And then the chapter president or the university intimidation, there's some questions as to who really threw the switch to disavow him and say, that's really bad. How dare you? Young Republicans don't stand for that. Then what are you standing for? This
Right.
fetishization of the status quo?
Right.
European conservatism, that's what that is. That European, it's lost every time. Europeans have never had that style of clinging to the past conservatism that's done anything for them.
Mhm. Yep. Yep. And there is a wing of the Republican Party that I think it thinks it's bigger than it is, but
Hmm.
it's very, very loud. That is very self-righteously advocating for this style of politics right now, and it's really frustrating because it's like amnesia about what we've experienced as conservatives, as Christians, as Republicans, as and just as citizens of this country over the past decade. Like since the Obama era, I would say.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think, and yeah, the problem that I see in this is that realistically, there are two. I've said openly, there are two groups right now, and I know I said this on the air before. So here we go. There are two people right now who are equally annoying me. There are those who say we need to walk in lockstep with everyone and accept all behavior. And actually, we need to lean into the worst behavior because it's good. Because it's good that they're saying it. It's good. Because if the left hates it, and if anyone hates it, that must mean it's really, really good. And then the people I equally hate are those who are the really picky, finicky, let's not get hasty, hang on, my norms. Both of those
Mhm.
crews are wrong and are very, very, very annoying at the present time. I really abhor the junior high limp wristed slapping contest.
Mhm.
But I think the real reason that what do you want to call them? The so far to the right that they're getting into the really weird conspiracy land and the really stupid crap and the obsession with the Jews and all of that. The reason I think they've gained so much popularity is because that is one of the only crews that is providing pictures of where they want America to go.
Mm.
Now, maybe, and as it's often the case, 99% of the things that they say need to be overcome to get there are wrong,
Mhm.
factually wrong, are built on wrong answers, and are also morally gross. But they're the only ones painting a picture. Most of the right, the reason the right's not actually doing a good job fighting them right now is because there's no picture. You're not saying, here's where we could go, which is American conservatism. They're
Mhm.
doing European conservatism. No, 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 we need to just stay here.
Mhm.
That's not the reason Donald Trump's 2024 announcement speech that he was going to run for reelection was good, was because of all of the things that he said that everyone's completely forgotten since. He said, we're going to go to Mars, first country to go to Mars. And that's painting a picture.
Mhm.
I was the only guy, to this day, I think the only guy who said that was the moment that sold me on his campaign.
Mm.
Before that, I had made a $50 donation to DeSantis. But once he said, we're going to be the first country to go to Mars, I was sold. I was
Mhm.
sold
Yep. Gives you a
because
vision.
where are we going? What are we
Yep.
doing? And the right
Yep.
used to do that. We're not doing that anymore.
Mhm.
And if it doesn't even matter if there is only if there's only one party painting a picture of where we go, what are we solving? What are we doing? It doesn't matter if all of the stuff around the painting, what's holding the painting up is disgusting and it's vile and it's wrong.
Mhm.
People are going to gravitate towards it.
Right.
You provide the picture.
Right. So true. Um, I would love to hear, changing gears away from politics just a little bit, but I would love to learn, since you've gotten married, since you've had kids, like how has your faith and your relationship with God evolved as you've kind of grown up from the young buck teacher in Indiana public schools to married father of two? Yeah.
One of the biggest things that I have struggled with since in kind of in my faith,
Mhm.
in getting older and getting married is there is a lot of stuff that young parents struggle with and deal with that is not really talked about or supported really in a lot of today's churches, and it's frustrating.
Mm.
I remember thinking, the proper division of like the groups of like Christians, like for Sunday school classes, you're gonna have like Sunday school teachers to, you know, teach lessons or have Bible studies on particular topics. You would have like the preschool age kids, and then you'd have like the elementary kids, and then your teen class, and then you would have college and career, which is for young adults who aren't married, the singles,
Mhm.
and then you would have married but not elderly, and like then you would have your senior saints, your elderly. I have completely changed on that because there are a lot of questions that I have, like dealing with parents. When you're parents, people don't realize a lot that Generation X, the biggest like generational issue with X is that a lot of them never grew up. They didn't want to grow up. And when those people start becoming grandparents, there are questions that I have, like as a parent, like how do you work with things? How do you deal with things? How do you move through certain things? And there's kind of a gap there that like we haven't really done a good job in the faith really incorporating young families and like the actual why you should have lots of kids. that Catholics do very well and everyone
Mhm.
doesn't. And I mean, you can get into the theological issue of like, well, that's because of the praising of like birth control
Mhm.
and family planning in Protestant circles. That's not biblical. It's
Mhm. It's not.
no, at all. And this leaving, there was an American dream that became really, really materialistic for the Protestant community. That we could all have our little picket fence and only have as many kids as we want. And again, it comes from that never wanting to grow up and experiencing, the good old boy kind of frat atmosphere of the country as long as you could, getting as much out of
Mhm.
it as you can. And that's not proper. So my faith has become way more focused on the actual American family
Mm.
rather than just being an individual actor in America itself. Like the family unit has become a
Mm.
huge focus of my faith.
Mhm.
And um, the reason I often joke that I'm kind of like the most pro-Catholic of the Baptists out here, is that they do understand a lot about raising strong families that has not only been very, very good for culture, it's been good for community, and also
Mhm.
it's very fulfilling. People just don't understand how fulfilling some of this stuff is, how deeply spiritual it is to become one with your spouse,
Mhm.
to actually become, you are one flesh.
Yep.
You are the same person. How you become like your spouse that is discouraged in a lot of American culture,
Mhm.
that you're supposed to treat your spouse as, the nagging wife who wants you to suffer. And then the women who treat their husband as just the dumb idiot, that the ape that I'm forced to live with.
Mhm.
I have really grown. I always hated that. The Finding Nemo-ness of culture. Because Marlon is painted as this stupid dad who doesn't understand and support his
Mhm.
son, and he's big dumb idiot.
Oh, and it's everywhere in culture. I mean, this cultural messaging is completely pervasive. Like, try to find a sitcom where that isn't the trope.
Where the dad isn't like him. I mean, and you can even see
Right.
this. There were moments in, for example, Family Matters, in which Carl, the police officer, would be the right one, and his wife, the strong, powerful black woman who's also a lawyer, and she's out here corporating and mothering and stuff, where he would be right and she would be wrong.
Mhm.
And then the really sweet, sexy, soulful saxophone music would swing in, and it would be in a very endearing moment where she's saying, "You know what, Carl? Sometimes I need you too." And then it would, swell and it'd be wonderful. And then Eric would run in, "Did I do that?" And it would be good. Then you got into this era of American sitcomming where everyone was Ray Romano.
Mhm. Right.
And Ray was
Yep.
Deborah, and he was always wrong.
Right.
And he's, by the way, he and Patricia Heaton have actually talked about that a little bit since then.
Interesting.
America's coming out of that is, it's a very essential for the men are all, and by the way, I used to tell my students this biologically, men are always at least a little bit stupid. Women are always at least a little bit crazy. Stereotypes are stereotypes for a reason, kids.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean that leaning into it and treating your one flesh, your partner, your best friend, as the ball and chain, so to speak, is worth it. And if there's one
Right.
thing millennials have been enamored with, so what did millennials get out of Up? Disney,
What did
Pixar,
they
because that
get
came out.
out of Up?
Remember when we were in college, Up had kind of come out. When people talked about Up in our generation as like the last of the millennials, what is
Mhm.
it that, like, would most pop up from that movie? And it's not Doug or the little kid that bothered Carl.
Oh gosh. The old couple? Like, their relationship? Is that what it was? Or okay. Yeah.
That's what everyone wanted.
Yep.
That's what seriously we would talk about. Like I said, that's the dating profiles. What you wanted. You wanted Carl and Ellie. You wanted the da-da-da-da,
Yep.
da-da-da-da. You wanted the lovely life together that was codependent and sweet and traditional. And
Mhm.
people like to give Gen Z a lot of credit as the first generation that's going back. It was the last of the millennials that watched this weird dynamic of marriage that Generation X portrayed as a pendulum swing away from the boomer-esque kind of that 70s show,
Mhm.
very harsh, or the Archie Bunker, come on, Edith, like kind of man and wife, very stern, argumentative. Then we started to swing back. And I think my faith has cemented that in place, that our marriage is much more kind of traditional in that aspect. My wife used to be a teacher. Now she stays at home. We were just talking about this last night, actually.
Mhm.
Um, also, building a double shower so that we can stand next to each other in the shower and not be cold and talk to each other and spend time together has been
Mhm.
wonderful. I've become obsessed with building house projects for Bethany. Like Hawkeye does for his family in like the Marvel series, how like there's always a project he's working on at home
Mhm.
for his
Mhm.
wife.
Yep.
Yeah, I've become obsessed with that. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much just these like little pervasive lies or like just bad, really bad teaching about relationships that just seeps into even like churchy culture, even if you're not hearing it from the pulpit. Like, I don't even
Mm.
remember where I heard this, but when I heard this, I remember thinking, like, oh, yeah, that's so true. Like, before I became a wife. About how somebody was complaining about how, oh, I hate it when couples call their spouse my better half or whatever, because you don't cease being a whole person when you're married. Like, you're not half a person. Your spouse isn't your better half. Like, you're a
There's this
whole and they're a
independent
whole.
rebellion.
And it's like, why?
You
Why?
remember being
You
in
know, it's
classes and having those weird arguments of like why someone should or shouldn't take the last name, and well, I'm
mhm,
still blah, 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 and it's like, oh my gosh, now on the other side of marriage and the immaturity of that
yep,
is it's distasteful.
yep,
I mean, it's weird. I don't know.
yep.
It was yeah. I'm
And even
definitely
the
getting what you're saying. Yeah.
normalization of gossiping about spouses, like, of, women talking poorly about their spouses when they get together or men talking poorly about their wives, it's just like, "Why are we doing this?" Like,
Dude, that
we're a team. That's the whole point of marriage, is that we are one flesh, and it's just like, why would you undercut your own interests by talking bad about someone who's literally your own flesh?
I
It's just
cannot
crazy
tell
to me.
you how much that upsets me.
Mhm.
And guys that I've been around, not now. I unfortunately
And not that anybody
moving
does
into
it
the
perfectly. Like,
true, true, of course not.
yeah, yeah.
There, I mean, and by the way, like there are things that my wife and I agree not to talk about to our friends, because there are some things because you do share some things about not like in a mocking way, but even like some like more intimate or embarrassing things.
Mhm.
That you may have a best friend that you don't want really said to that best friend.
Right.
Something along those lines. But I would say that when I moved into the DC sphere and I met a lot of the coastal elite youths who are around us, I've seen some of them also doing like the gossiping about spouse stuff. And I'm not trying to impress anyone to say this, but there have been times when I would be like, I don't want to hear that.
Mhm.
I don't want to hear you talk about your wife like that.
Mhm.
You've got
Mhm.
problems. You go talk to her and your pastor. No.
Do you watch I Think You Should Leave? Please tell me
Yes.
you've seen I
Yes.
Think You
Oh, I
Should Leave.
mean, oh, of course. Oh,
The
yeah.
"I love my wife, I shouldn't have said that."
And
Yep,
I'm just
love it.
thinking about wearing a hot dog suit and crashing into a suit store. So
My husband and I are currently watching The Chair Company, so I don't know if you've seen that yet, but you'll have to. Yeah, we watched the first 2 episodes, I think, and so far I'm in it. So,
I'm
yeah.
jealous that right now you have time to watch things with your husband. Right now I don't think that I can always tell when my wife has gotten kind of sad that we're no longer watching something together because she desists into watching like older shows that I despise. Like I'll come in and like Gilmore Girls will be on, and I want to chuck my glasses like that one guy on Instagram who tastes something good and he just like throws his glasses in anger. That's how I feel when like Gilmore Girls is on. But no, I love I miss watching stuff. I'm jealous you get to actually have time to do that. I wish I had time to do that right now.
It's kind of a nightly ritual or as often as we can fit it in, but it's always like half an episode of something because without fail, I fall asleep. So we watch shows in like
Oh
10
yeah.
to 15-minute chunks. So it's not like we're getting all of this uninterrupted time to watch something because I always blow it, but we do our best.
We're the
We're
elderly
watching
couple
through the
who's
chair
reading
company
in
10
bed
minutes
next
at a
to each
time.
other now. Yeah,
Say again?
we're the elderly couple reading into our Kindle Paperwhites in bed next to each other. She's in the How I Met Your Dragon or How to Train Your Dragon. Oh my gosh, not How I Met Your Mother, not How to Train Your Dragon, How to Train Your Dragon series. And I'm like rereading an alternate World War II history book because, of course, I am.
Of course.
Um,
Yes.
uh,
I've been really into audiobooks, because I love to read, but I have this problem where I don't actually spend most of my days on camera. I spend most of my days editing. And so I read all day, every day. And the last thing I want to do when I'm done with work is close my laptop and pick up a book. And so I've been listening to lots of audiobooks and I've been loving it. And I've been reading so many more books lately because I've been listening to them. And I think some people have a hard time digesting them or like getting into them. But as somebody who listens to a lot of podcasts, it's super natural and easy for me. Like I think I get just as much information listening as I do reading. And wow, I've been loving that. So I'm not really a sit in bed and read person, or I will fall asleep on page two, but audiobooks are my jam right now.
So I do have some audiobooks that I listen to while I'm working. Here's a fun secret of me, which is really well, it's not really a super secret. I hate podcasts. I hate it. I
Oh,
hate
interesting.
podcasting. I hate podcasts. I do. I've never listened to a podcast outside of a couple of news things that like are on my list, and I would prefer to watch them or at least have them on video.
Mhm.
So I have a couple of podcasts that I do try to watch or shows that I watch every day just to make sure as I don't think I know everything. I know, shocker. But I do keep up with some other podcasts to see, okay, what's the more establishment to me guys talking about on their show? You know, what's to the right of me? What's this person
Mhm.
talking about? Those have become less accessible to me in the last couple of weeks because they often write their shows the day before, and we start writing our show 3 hours before it goes live at 7.
Mhm.
Um, and so we're ahead of them in the news cycle. So most often, what we're finding now is that I'm hearing news I've already heard,
Right.
and I guess we're getting better because we're covering the same stories. So that's a stress point. But I don't like podcasts in general. I'm in a rough, weird kind of a lapse spot here, and I
Why do
never
you not
listen
like
to
them?
stuff.
Or is it like a certain genre of them that you like? Or I mean, do you not ever sit down and like listen to a Rogan podcast or anything?
The last Rogan podcast that I listened to was when he was talking with that Wesley Huff guy.
Okay, yeah.
That did the
Yeah.
debate on the Bible.
The like
Um,
apologist or
and
I
then
don't know his
before,
actual
right
title, but
before
yeah.
that, I think it was I didn't even listen to all of his one with Vance. I listened to the one with him and Trump because I was actually about 2 feet over there painting the ceiling, or no, I think I was like trying to shove insulation in the ceiling, listening to Trump talk about real estate like in a way that was very detailed and like impressive and knowledgeable,
Mhm.
and that stuck with me. But I just don't like I never wanted to do a podcast.
Mhm.
Well, because now I'm of course running two of them. And I just don't I think they're often desisting into what this is for people who don't know us. Is this us just talking?
Mhm.
And I like that. If you get like, you get interested enough, but I have a problem. And my problem is if I listen to something like this long enough, it will no longer be enough for me to listen to it. Now I want to talk to them. I'm serious. Like after I
Yeah.
listened to like a year or so of the Ben Shapiro show, I was like, all right, I want to like be on a speaking basis with him.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Because it
same with
makes you feel like you know the people.
the
Yeah.
ruthless guys, like the ruthless podcast guys who I listen to, I see are kind of more like slightly more establishmenty. They're not really establishment, but they're more DC oriented maybe than I am, and more politically pragmatic in some ways than I am. And I also listened to him for a while, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to meet these guys. And now I've done so. I just get kind of bored with that. I
Mhm.
don't know. It's I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. I just am not interested in some random guy out there that I've never heard of leaning into the mic and doing NPR stuff of something that I'm either going to be outraged over. I would rather listen to an audiobook, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think maybe it's because I don't religiously listen to any particular podcast, except for You're Wrong with Molly Hemingway and David Harsanyi every
Mhm.
Wednesday. Excellent podcast. I can never get
I
tired of that. But
Okay,
also I do
that's
know
fair.
them personally, and so that helps, you
I
know?
have listened to Molly and David a little bit, and I did the last time I really leaned into was I was going to have David on the show, and I was like, I'm going to need to know what you've just talked about, but also more so because again, I'm obsessed with pattern psychology. I want to know how you think about things so that I'm not
Mhm.
awkward. I tried interviewing Jeb Bush once, and on a podcast that no longer exists for Chalkboard Review, and I didn't know at all how he was going to be in real life, like talking to him. And so
Mhm.
he answers the call, and he's in a tank top on his balcony, like next to the beach, and I'm like, I didn't prepare for this. So I still do that occasionally. I don't know.
Mhm.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
My show's more broadcast oriented. I prefer
Mhm.
radio and TV more.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I think I bounce around enough that I don't ever feel too connected to anybody or I don't really know. Like I'll listen to one day I'll listen to Molly and David or like a different political podcast. The next day I'll listen to somebody that I like agree with on some politics but not on the rest because I really want to know how they're framing an issue. The next day I'm listening to a true crime series and then I'm listening to like Elisa Childers apologetics. You know, it's just like I bounce around because I just like the diversity of like brain food, but it's passive. You know, like you I could be
Yeah.
dinner and like passively like exercising, you know, my
And there
brain.
are
So
shows that I listen to that are podcasts. During the day I have, 11 a.m. hits, and I listen to two or three. while I'm doing other stuff.
Mhm.
And that's also probably the biggest issue is that I have aggressive ADHD, which any who do can tell because I have now moved my glasses on and off my face, which of course, by the way, has become a staple. Just as a friend, me taking my glasses off has become a staple of things that people notice for the show. And so if I'm ever really frustrated about something and I'm like talking and I take my glasses off, everyone in the chat will start going glasses off
Mhm.
as though like I'm getting really serious and I'm going to talk, whatever. Sorry,
That's
but
hilarious.
this,
Which
that this, yeah.
that's a great reminder, Tony. If you didn't know that Tony was taking his glasses off, that's just because you are only listening to the podcast when you could be watching this on the Federalist Rumble or the Kylee Cast on YouTube. So if you're just listening, next time definitely go check out the full video version on Rumble or YouTube.
Or
Anyway,
the
Tony,
Daily Signals YouTube, because
or the
we're
Daily
going to
Signal.
use that collaboration-y airing it to my. So I guess I'm here explaining my audience. My audience is probably listening to this if they've made it this far into listening to me ramble like a goofy child.
Yeah, we've gone on a while. Sorry about that. I told you an hour,
No,
and here we are at an hour and 15, just still.
it doesn't bother. I'm serious. My kids are asleep. My wife just texted me a picture of them. They look adorable. And my producer, in studio producer, is gone doing something, and so I mean, it's just a chill Saturday. I've had
I
like the
love it.
longest week. Whatever you need.
Love it.
That's the other thing. I
Okay.
don't listen to things because I enjoy doing the thing.
Yeah.
Since
Yep.
becoming a national correspondent, hopping in front of media, now that I'm doing that, I'm forced to listen to the A segment of so many shows. I don't really
Yeah.
watch any TV shows.
Yeah, totally.
So sorry, I didn't mean to double dip and go forward on that, but
No, no, I
yeah.
love it. And that's so true. And I just have found, like, as much as I do love podcasts and sometimes watching segments, I've just found I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna invest this much time in listening to things, I should just listen to more books because then I could actually get through more things. So I'm trying to focus some of my podcast time into books because like I I listen to Mere Christianity and by C.S. Lewis, and I did that in 2 chunks of a drive. Like it's a 6-hour book. I listened to everything on about 2 times speed, and I got it done, like that. It would have taken me a while to
I can
actually
do
sit
that.
down in multiple chunks to like pick that up and read it.
I'm gonna be really pretentious here. It's the music aspect of it that bothers me for listening to things at 2 times speed.
Mm,
Because the way the audio works when it's compressed, it doesn't sound as though you actually had Ben Shapiro reading at this time speed. All right, here back with
mhm,
Birch Gold. Right? Like you don't actually get that out of them. What you get instead is a really quick. The audio doesn't sound right, and to my brain, it like freaks it out. As much as it did, as you know, when a song was played in the wrong key, and that
mhm,
used to really, really bother me. That kind of thing always prevents me from listening to things faster. That's how my
mhm.
producer edits clips, by the way, and edits the top news in 10 that we do in the mornings. He'll sit there, and if I'm in the same room, it drives me nuts. He's listening to me. A, that's a problem. I hate listening to me. Number
Yep,
two,
same. Not you, me.
it's so fast.
Yep.
It's so fast. Oh, I'm so glad I'm not the biggest blessing, and I can't wait until you eventually do have someone editing your stuff. You will be a happier person because I'm a perfectionist. When I used to record things myself, it would take 3 times as long
Oh my
because I'm
word.
sitting there going, I didn't say that right, back up. I didn't say that right, back up. Ugh.
You really have to let go of so much of it because it's such a time suck and it's so bad for you. But yeah, I hate re-listening to myself. Um, Anyway, yeah, the listening to things fast doesn't bother me. Maybe it's just because I've completely screwed up and rewired my brain where that's how I listen to everything. So that's probably also why I'm a bit of a fast talker at times because that's how I intake stuff. So then I just also spit it out in that rapid fire, not normal, not human way of talking. But
Someone
that's all right.
actually made the Gilmore Girls comparison to my show, actually, last night's episode. And my wife cackled, like the Wicked Witch of the West cackled because she knows how much I hate Gilmore Girls, which is famous, by the way, for having audio or having dialogue that is so dense that people would watch the same episode over again. Gilmore Girl, fun fact, is the most TiVoed sitcom in history.
Really?
Yeah, like because people go back and would watch it and get something
Mm-hmm.
totally else out of the dialogue
Mm-hmm.
because that's how packed they made it. And my show apparently now I'm trying to stuff so much into the hour that the broadcast show is fit in that first of all, it's now stretching the bonus portion of the show, which used to be 5 minutes, and they called it bonus tonus. Which you're one of the only people who knows kind of that nickname's
Mm-hmm.
evolution. And then that's now a half an hour or more because there's just so much. And I'm also compressing so much snarky banter and like the receipts into one thing that they're Gilmore Girlsing me. So that's horrible and awful. So it's
That's
not just
hilarious.
you.
That is hilarious. I am not one of those girls who's obsessed with Gilmore Girls. I've never been able to really get into it. So,
That's garbage. Yeah, you're not wrong.
okay, you brought up the music things being in the wrong key. Before I wrap this up, do you still do theater and music? Those are two of the collegiate activities we were involved in together. A traveling choir, and we were in a production of Sherlock Holmes together. Do you
That's
still
right.
do either of those things in your free time or
So
not so much?
were you in the Christmas Carol with us as well?
I was not. No, I did much ado about nothing after you left, but
Oh,
no,
which by
I
the
was not
way,
in the
I've
Christmas
thought about that. Much Ado About Nothing is a wild play for a Christian university to do because the word nothing in Shakespeare's time was an offhand, like a nothing was a euphemism for like a sexual affair. So
Okay.
essentially, Much Ado About Nothing is a Shakespearean way to say a lot of gossip about an affair. Wild,
Incredible.
wild. Yeah,
Yeah,
right? Anyway,
we broke a lot of rules. So,
just and that's just a little tidbit no one was asking for. There you go. Anyway, to answer your question, I don't really do a lot of acting. I got into voice acting more when I got out of college because it was an
okay.
easy way to make a couple of bucks.
Mhm.
And that's still I've done some voiceovers for some people on like show intros and things. Um, I don't really do as much actual voice acting anymore because I have enough of it with this.
Mhm.
I do a lot of impressions on the show that some people think are very good. They like my buddy Sanders out there talking about all of the things that the pudding. They like that one. My Trump is getting better. Um, that's how the theater kind of still comes in, if at all. And then on a different note, the music. So I have done some church music still, occasionally like sing a special or play. There's one episode of the Tony Kinnett Cast that was essentially a musical. So I have a keyboard over offset that
Okay.
I've plugged in before and have just for a gimmick. And then I've occasionally duetted um, a couple of people online, like friends of ours, like Michael Knowles did a ukulele video of a wagon wheel. And so
Okay.
I just pulled out the piano and then did that and made it real. It got a lot of
Nice.
hits.
Fun.
Um, I wish I did more. I don't know. These days, I just don't get to as much anymore. I miss it. Do you?
Yeah. I wish I could do more theater, but I don't anymore, and part of that is that I live in a very blue area, where theater is, like, about as woke as you can get, and so even doing, like, a community theater thing, I just am not ready to dive into that culture. Um, yeah, I don't want people to know much about me, so, I don't wanna get into the local theater scene. Um, I would love to direct plays. I did a bit of that in college. Directing 12 Angry Men and 12 Angry Women, or assistant directing, was so fun, and I actually loved that side of it. And so I would love to do that, maybe once I have kids and they're grown and in plays, I'll be able to do more directing. I think that's much more where my skill I shouldn't say where my skills and interests lie because I love acting. But yeah, I
Yes.
haven't done much of it.
I
What?
No, I'm agreeing with you. I really, really do miss the acting side of things.
Mhm.
It comes
Mhm.
through a lot in show design and writing reels. If I did some like sketches during the 24 campaign that were a lot of fun, and once you get into it, you're like, ooh, that was really, really fun. We'd actually joked about introducing the show differently every night for like a month, where we mimicked, and I mean like went all out mimicking another major conservative or center like podcaster or show
Okay.
host. And I mean like going all in and like exacerbating everything. And I don't think the idea faded out. I don't know. I miss it. I think I did write a play.
Okay.
And then it promptly started gathering dust on the shelf.
Yeah,
Um,
as it does.
sorry, you said directing, and that's what started
Yeah.
my internal rabbit trail cycling.
Yeah. Music, I mean, nothing really more than congregational music.
Mhm.
I mean, I sing in the shower. I sing around my house. I don't do any organized other music.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe in the future, but because I really do love it. But yeah, just not a way that I'm really using that right now.
I don't know if you remember this. When I was in college, I made a mashup of a couple of songs that I think I showed you when you were like my seat partner on tour. It was a
Okay.
mashup of Uptown Funk and Stevie Wonder's "Very Superstitious."
Okay.
I was doing like a lot of mashup stuff, mixing there
Okay.
on the tour bus. I've made a couple of those since.
Okay.
while I was teaching. Like I did get into that for a little bit.
Nice.
Again, now that turns into editing bumper tracks at like
Right.
the intro, because radio, you're supposed to come in and announce the show and what station it's on. That's like the guideline.
Mhm.
Um, oh man, I actually just realized I'm supposed to sing a special in church tomorrow morning. I haven't been on the schedule in months. This is how I'm reminded. I need to figure out what I'm going to sing and play.
Oh, that's hilarious. Hilarious. Yeah, I do have a mind for the mixing. That's how my brain works. I'll often be listening to a song with my husband or something, and he laughs at me because I'll be like, "Oh, this sounds exactly like the bass line and such," and I'll just like start
Hmm.
singing the other song
Hmm.
while the other song is playing. So I do a lot of that in my mind. But no, I
Oh,
don't
I'm
actually like
obsessed with
work it
mixing and
out
mashing. Oh,
in any way.
I do have a lot of mashups and remixes that I prefer. One that I love right now, there's the Will Smith's "Get Jiggy with It"
Okay.
as the vocal stems, and then the audio is this Italian disco song from like the
Okay.
80s. It's
Okay.
fantastic.
Oh,
Also,
cool.
one of the new Taylor Swift songs and Backstreet's "Back All Right" as the background music track of it
Okay.
apparently it's so good that Taylor Swift and AJ referenced it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
you'll have
yeah,
to send me these.
I love mashups and mixes, yeah, and
I
again,
love
things
it.
that no one asked, no one cares about, but it's here.
It's great. Okay. We've been talking so long that my laptop is actually it's fading. The battery is fading. So before we wrap, it's fading fast. Oh, this is a real problem. Let's see. Before I let you go, I want to just ask you a couple rapid fire questions.
You got
These
it.
are quick answers. Okay. What is this is so broad. I really should have narrowed it down. What is one thing you can't live without?
A MacBook charger. Sorry.
Okay, that was
Oh,
rude.
no, yeah, that was mean. One thing that I can't live without, um, I oh, gee. I have a
Like a
c my com
gadget or something, like
yeah,
obviously
my
your wife.
computer over here, that I have had since college that I built in college. We called it Charles, and I have now replaced every part of it 4 or 5 times, a real ship of Theseus kinda situation. I don't know if I could live without it because all of the stuff
Okay.
that I edit with is part of it. I don't know. Maybe my
Yeah.
piano. We got a
Okay.
baby grand. I love it.
Oh, awesome. Love that. I would love to do that. Well, maybe the answer to this is nothing based on our conversation, but what are you watching right now?
Trying very. We're having movie nights right now, and I'm introducing my wife and my brother-in-law to my favorite modern trilogy of things, which is the Oceans 11, 12, and
Oh,
13 trilogy.
okay.
So up tonight, actually, they watched Ocean's 11 and liked it a lot more than when my wife complained about it last time and wasn't watching it. Probably fell asleep like you do when you watch things. But Ocean's 12 is tonight, so I'm
Okay.
excited about that.
Very fun. Yeah, those are good. I like those. I also just watched the Mission Impossibles for the first time, and I also loved the Daniel Craig James Bonds. My husband has been like
Oh,
making me
wrong,
watch those movies. I
wrong.
loved them.
Pierce Brosnan is by far the best Bond other than Connery.
Okay,
The
here's the
Pierce
thing.
Brosnan ones are so good.
Okay, I'll have to go back and watch the Pierce Brosnan ones. I watched the Pierce Brosnan as Remington Steele, like that TV show, and enjoyed it. I mean, it's like an
Pierce
80s
Brosnan's
show,
such a
obviously.
phenomenal actor.
Yeah,
He
he's great.
underrated.
He's great. I'll have to go back and watch those James Bonds because I'm not comparing Daniel Craig to a different James Bond. I'm just saying I loved those movies.
And here's a hot take: Ghost Protocol is the best Mission Impossible movie of all of them.
Okay, which one is that? Because I
The
don't
one where
remember the
he's in
names.
Dubai and where they dress up as the Russian general and like they have to do everything on their own and get the nuclear codes. I liked that one. I thought that
Yes.
the effects peaked in that one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed them all. I just thought they were great. Okay. What are you reading right now?
So I'm reading two things right now because, of course. So the first thing I'm reading in my little Kindle over there is also on my bookshelf because, of course, it is. I'm going to slide over. It's the dust cover for the book. Please don't ask why. It's Harry Turtledove's The Grapple. So there's an alternate history series that he wrote called the Southern Victory series, in which if Lee would not have lost this packet that contained all of his plans, that's actually how he got stopped running up into the north. Would it have been enough to force France and England to force a settlement temporarily, like just enough? And then there's like a bunch of other stuff because, of course, the South actually wouldn't have won. But that's what I'm reading right now because his
Okay.
style of historical stuff is really interesting. I find that neat as a novel.
Cool.
Um, and then in the book side of things, I am currently reading Blowback, which is a book diving into the Oklahoma City bombing and some of the weird cover up, because that should have been a very clear, that and the USS Cole should have essentially prepared us for 9/11, and Bill Clinton screwed the pooch, his administration. Bill Clinton not bearing the responsibility for 9/11 will never not fascinate me.
Wow. Okay, cool. Okay. This is an either or question. Guilty pleasure, something you watch, or food.
My guilty pleasure for food, when it's not steak, and having a local farm sponsor our show is one of the best things ever. Um, Exchanging ad time for a freezer full of meat has changed my life.
I love that.
I understand corruption and bribery now. I get it. I do. I'm mostly joking. No, on the guilty pleasure thing, every once in a while, I get a guilty pleasure to either eat biscuits and gravy with bacon and a Dr. Pepper, as I did in college, which was a thing back when we had bacon. And then I like reading occasionally the teenage apocalypse novels,
Okay.
like the Hunger Games Divergent series. I
Okay.
haven't really indulged in this one for a very long time. Um, I there's an older series that's now a movie called by Scott Westerfield called The Uglies.
Okay. Oh yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, that's like a guilty pleasure from way, way back, but I haven't indulged in that one in a while. That used to be
Yeah.
my answer to that question.
Okay. Last question. One thing you wish people knew about Indiana.
Let's see. Normally what I would say is that it's the most underrated state in the union.
Mhm.
When you start a radio show, you're supposed to spend the first episode talking about why you were doing this. Maybe you did that the first time you launched this show. I didn't. I went on about how Indiana is underrated for a number of reasons. I will choose one of those for you that's just nerdy. Indiana limestone that comes from the southern part of the state is in more US government buildings than any other kind of material.
Hmm.
As like a base building, like not metal and nails, but I mean, if we're
Mhm.
talking about brick, if we're talking like a certain kind of brick or a certain kind of stonework, Indiana limestone is in everything in DC, all kinds of places, and I think that's really cool. It
Fascinating.
built. It's like it's in the Wisconsin Capitol, for
Yeah,
instance.
cool.
Yeah,
Which we have a beautiful capital here. It's
that's
gorgeous.
gorgeous.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we love it. Awesome. Tony, it has been truly a pleasure to reconnect with you and to have you on the Kylee Cast. What a fun time. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you very much, and we'll have you on the Tony Kinnett Cast, so we'll get everyone confused in the acronyms.
That would be so fun. I didn't realize until after I named my show that your show is basically named the same thing with your name. So we'll just keep going back and forth on each other's shows. That sounds great.
Well, I work for the Daily Signal, and there's like 30 dailies, so
Yeah. All right, Tony, great to see you. Thanks again. Hope to have you back again very soon.
take care.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Kylee Cast. Once again, please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Go check out the brand new channel for the Kylee Cast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I will be right back here next week with more. So until then, just remember, the truth hurts, but it won't kill you.